Hello everyone, my name is Pepsilk and welcome to Thoughts On. This is a series where I analyze games and give my opinions on them. Today, we'll be looking at Warhammer 40k Darktide, a game I've been looking forward to close a year off. After 84 hours of gameplay through the pre-order beta and full release, and experimenting with 2 of the 4 classes, I can safely say that Darktide is a great game in its own right, but suffers from a few problems that, although have been addressed as of right in this video, developer Fastshot don't seem to be really doing much about it to make it better. More on that later though. Darktide is a 4-player cooperative experience made by the creators of the critically acclaimed Vermintide series, Fat Shark, with Vermintide 2 being one of the best co-op games I've ever played, with dozens of hours spent purging rats and doing Sigmar's holy work. If you've played the Vermintide games, I'm happy to inform you that this game is vastly similar in almost every way, with the emphasis being on ranged combat this time around instead of melee combat. For those that are new, the Tide games are known for having a vast and deep melee combat system that allows you to perform different combos and wield a variety of weapons, with ranged combat being supported and used as a secondary way of killing enemies. But with Darktide, it's the other way around, as the rejects, which are the characters you play, gain access to different types of weaponry, from lasguns to power swords and bolters, some of the most iconic weapons in the 40k universe. The game has had very good marketing too, with trailers providing details of the different classes, the story, and the general premise of the game's location, which is the hive city of Tertium. You start off as a reject, a person who has been transported aboard the Tancred Bastion for a crime they committed. During the transport, followers of the Chaos God Nurgle surround and board the ship, in which you break free, try to figure out what's going on, and save Explicator Zola, one of the characters who will be providing you missions throughout the game. She then gives you an opportunity to join the Inquisition and serve the Emperor as a means of removing your death sentence, though this is not guaranteed. As the game progresses, the Chaos manage to infiltrate the Inquisition, and word spreads that there is a rat amongst them spreading and giving information. The cutscenes are a bit vague in this game, as you get them by leveling up your character, or trust level as they call it, and each scene earns you trust with different pieces of the Morning Star, your base of operations, all leading to the moment where the informant is revealed. It's simple and to the point, but it's said that the narrative will be expanding over the coming months of the game's life cycle, with new content following and providing new stories. We'll start off with the positives first, because I'm going to be comparing and contrasting the negatives to its big boy, Vermintide 2. The gameplay, for the most part, is freaking amazing. The combat is visceral, the gore effects are spot on, there's lots of enemy types, and plenty of replayability thanks to the inbuilt director, which aims to shape the game up and change the way the level is played, which is one of the things that come to mind when playing these cooperative games. Weapon combos, as mentioned, are implemented in ways that provide the weapons with different uses, such as increased cleave against a horde or higher single target damage. Another positive that I want to add to this is the sound design. My god, the sound design is so spot on with the Warhammer 40k universe. A weapon that I want to mention that does this right is the Bolter, which is a power fantasy for most that are familiar with what this weapon is. I'm not a 40k fan myself, but after picking this gun up for the first time and shooting it, I can safely say that this is one of, if not, the best weapon I've ever used in a video game. It's chunky, shreds through enemies, bulky enough that a human can barely hold it due to its supreme power, and to make up for it, it staggers enemies thanks to its explosive rounds, which is a nice detail to the sheer power of this weapon. There are also conditions, which are special modifiers that are added to missions to make the game easier or harder. One such modifier that I generally enjoy is Endless Hordes, where every few minutes the director will send a horde your way, leaving you and your team to slice your way through every single heretic in Tertium. And coupled with the new squad coherency system, this works really well. One new addition that's been added to this game that makes it stand out from Vermintide 2 is the coherency system, where being within the range of your squad gives you bonuses and regenerates your toughness, which is a new finite resource that essentially acts as a shield. Toughness is introduced as a way of countering the many ranged enemies that are in this game, as not having it would result in many unnecessary deaths and unfortunate events. You gain this back by staying with your squad and initiating in melee combat, albeit killing fodder enemies or stabbing specials. I love the implementation of this system because it encourages team play, something that, though in Vermintide 2 this is of somewhat importance, it didn't really matter much in that game because most classes were built to sustain and solo in many situations. With Darktide, it seems that Fastshot wants players to survive encounters by staying together instead of going off looking for tomes and grimoires. Speaking of tomes and grimoires, They exist in this game but now act as secondary objectives and are luck based in terms of getting the objective itself, as not every mission in the mission terminal will have these, but netting one of these and getting them done will result in extra coin and XP to help level your character up a bit faster. Another positive to note is the difficulty system, which thankfully works really well for the most part. The game is divided into 5 difficulty levels, which are Sedition, Uprising, Malice, Heresy, and Damnation. Each difficulty has different coin rewards. I should probably refer to those as auto dockets since that's what they're called, and spawns get higher with more hordes, specials, and elites. An advice I like to give for new players is to start on the lower difficulties first, to level your character and keep playing through it until you feel that it's too easy for you. Once you feel the difficulty spike diminishing, go to the next difficulty. The game gets better the higher you play it, but don't feel like you need to rush yourself to get to that next difficulty, even if you have good gear. The game gets better the higher you play it, but don't feel like you need to rush yourself to get to that next difficulty, even if you have good gear. I'd also like to recommend a Steam guide by Mr. Snugglemuffins, which at the bottom of this guide has a difficulty recommendation section that provides simple details for what to expect on each difficulty. Feel free to use this as a guideline for when you want to change up your experience. Link in the description for that. Last thing I want to talk about before getting into the classes is this one particular section taken from Steam's Darktide page. This reigns true and adds to what I mentioned with coherency, as straying away from your team will have disablers go after you first, such as the big mutants or the annoying poxhounds. At first glance, I was a bit worried about the classes shown in the trailers because they felt similar to Vermintide 2's equivalents to those classes, just replicated in the 40k universe. Although I'm satisfied with the 4 options we have available at launch, I can't help but be disappointed in that there aren't more classes like there were in Vermintide 2. In the base game of Vermintide 2, there are 15 classes or careers as they call them, with each character having 3, and every career serves its own purpose, whether it's frontlining, range damage, horde cleaving, or elite and special designation. Each career had different playstyles, providing multiple ways to play through the game's levels, and always having different experiences. With Darktide, however, the replay value is significantly reduced here. It's not to say that the 4 classes are bad by any means, because they each bring their own value to the table, but I just felt like if they had more variety or maybe added subclasses to these classes, it would give Darktide more life and better player retention. That being said, I've only played 2 of the 4 classes, which are the Veteran Sharpshooter and the Zealot Preacher. Veteran Sharpshooter is the most unique one out of the 4, as I feel that the class's feats and ultimate ability makes it feel right at home with 40k, with the idea of you being an elite disposer. The Sharpshooters are known for fighting their targets in range, using melee weapons as a last resort. Their ultimate ability, Volley Fire, marks all special targets within your vicinity and gives you increased range damage for a few seconds, while the Coherency ability gives players a small amount of ammo after killing an elite enemy. The Zealot Preacher is a close range class that incentivizes getting into the heretics' faces and acts as a frontline for your team while also dishing out lots of melee damage, with their ranged weapons being put to the side. Their ultimate ability, Cherish the Wicked, allows them to dash towards an enemy, making the next melee attack a guaranteed critical hit and increase that attack's damage. As of right in this video, it also has a current hidden effect that gives armor penetration to your ranged weapons, making armored targets go down with ease. I'm hoping that this stays the way it is because it adds a nice dynamic to the Preacher in using certain weapons that benefit from being up close. Each class has a set of feats, which are unlocked every 5 levels and gives players an option to pick one of 3 in each column. These feats decide on what kind of build you are going for, and unlike Vermintide 2, where certain skills are picked because they're simply better than the rest, that's not the case in Darktide. Different feats provide different uses and allow weapons to associate with them one way or another. Now onto the weapons, and the first of 3 is the loot. Loot in Darktide works like this. When you start your purging journey, you get white items, which are the most common and lowest tier of items you can get, and as you progress through the game, you will get better gear by either getting an Empress gift at the end of the mission, which isn't guaranteed, but when granted, you will get a weapon that has a higher rating than your current ones, or go into the Armory Exchange to purchase weapons with the auto dockets that you earn from missions. The 5 rarities in order are white, green, blue, purple, and orange, with orange being the best in-slot gear that you want to equip for higher difficulties. Each piece of gear is given an item rating, and that rating is based on the perks and blessings on the weapon. So perks are bonus stats and blessings are traits that give weapons special properties, as well as the modifiers on the weapon, which are distributed to the stats shown, such as damage, penetration, and reload speed. The randomness provides weapons with different blessings that can fulfill different roles, such as armor piercing, power, and cleave, to name a few. While the loot itself is very pleasing and satisfying to get the role and things you want, there is a catch: RNG. I already mentioned it with the Empress gift, but in regards to the shop, there is currently no way of getting purple or orange gear outside of crafting and the Empress Gift, so you have to go to the armory exchange to try and get what you want. But wait, there's more. If the weapon you want isn't available, you have to wait till 00 of every hour just for the shop to refresh, and the game can fuck you and give you multiple of the same weapon, leaving that precious weapon you want out in the dust and in the hands of the RNG gods. Who the fuck designed this shop and what were they smoking when they made this? I like to compare it to Vermintide 2. Despite being bad in its own merits, it actually gave players incentive to chase better items, such as ramping up the difficulty and picking up tomes and grimoires, which would in turn provide players with a better quality chest, meaning better items. Not to mention every chest gave you 3 items, and even though it's not much, it's the incentivization part that's important to note. In Darktide, there is no incentive to chase books, or do anything aside from waiting for hours on end to get the item you want, let alone upgrade it. And that's the next problem I want to address, which is the basic as fuck crafting system. Now, a few weeks ago, Fastshark made a community post detailing crafting and how it would work going into full release, with Consecration being the first action of crafting, where you can upgrade your weapon to the next tier for crafting materials that you find throughout your missions. This was implemented in the pre-order beta, and it made sense at the time, given they wanted to give players a taste of what's to come. They also detailed the other actions, such as earning blessings, where you can extract them from other weapons, dismantling them in the process, and saving them to combine them with other weapons, followed by rebless, which is respecking blessings until you get the one you want, and finally, refining, changing the perks of a weapon. Now, all of this on paper sounds great, and they did mention that they were playing around with things, which is fine for a pre-order beta. Fast forward to December, just 2 weeks after the release, and consecrating is still the only option we have available. Now, they did address this in a recent community update, and have said that they will be releasing refining for items, but everything else is still out in the dust. What's keeping them behind from releasing the other actions of crafting, and why are they releasing these in bits? If I was a full release game, I'd expect myself to have everything available for players, not have crucial elements like this missing, because this is one major mechanic that keeps players invested in min-maxing their gear, and having a like this in its current state is unacceptable and disgraceful for developers that have claimed they learned from Vermintide 2 over the past few years. One last thing to note here is that auto dockets and crafting materials are not shared amongst all characters. This was clearly done to pad out game time and should be shared to make the grind less of a hassle. Gear works the same way too, but I personally don't mind gear being limited, as there are weapons that only certain classes can use, which is totally fine. As of the 11th of December, the game is sitting at a 64% rating on Steam with over 37,000 reviews, the majority of them aiming at the in-game's cosmetic shop, which I'd like to go over and why I think it's been poorly implemented. Another Vermintide 2 comparison again. The more I do this, the more I question whether or not Fastshark has really learned from their mistakes. In Vermintide 2, the currency is shillings that can be earned through gameplay or simply logging into the game, where you receive an X amount of shillings. Gameplay included daily and weekly missions that would also reward you, and you can spend these on buying weapon and hero skins. There are also skins that can only be bought with real money, implying that if you buy these, you are simply supporting the developers and showing off your new look for a class that you really like playing. In Darktide, however, that is not the case. The in-game shop has skins similar to Vermintide, but can only be bought with the premium currency Aquilas instead of real money. Technically, you are spending real money, but the prices of these skins are giving me Overwatch 2 vibes. For a bundle in Australian dollars, it is $18.70, and to do that, you have to buy the $14.95 bundle alongside the $3.75 one, which gives you a total of 2,600 Aquilas. The problem comes from Fastshark not having a lower option, similar to something like Apex, where you can buy 500 Apex coins, allowing players to save some money instead of spending more to get a skin you want. In a PC Gamer article, Fastshark had this to say about their shop. We forgot to add one of the bundles. The idea was always to be one-to-one. We realized a bit too late that one of the bundles wasn't in. It takes a bit of time to get it approved and stuff like that. But we for sure need to improve that, and we hear people. We got that one wrong, and we need to rectify that to make sure people don't have that friction at all. The in-game currency also opens up the door to Twitch drops and giving away premium cosmetics, which the gear said Fastshark couldn't do in Vermintide. We can't really go, here's $5, spend it on our game in Steam, hopefully. So their intention was to use Twitch drops as a means of promoting the game while also giving FOMO to players who miss out on these? Prior to the latest update, there was a FOMO option in that skins would be rotated out after an X amount of days, similar to free-to-play titles, but that was later removed. I don't support this kind of bullshit in paid games, and I think it needs to be reconsidered in a way that it works just like Vermintide 2. That way it pleases all parties and people can move on and continue playing the game for what it is. Part of the reason why I believe the shop has been designed like this is because Fat Shark was acquired by Tencent in January 2021. And it wouldn't surprise me if this is the case, even though they'll never admit to that. Post-editing Pep here. I forgot to mention the Requisitorium, which is like a space where you talk to this guy and he gives you weekly contracts, which are like bounties from Destiny 2. And once you complete all of them, you get like, there's like another currency that they add where you can buy limited time weapons that refresh every day. Oh, and also, there's missing weapons in a full release game. 5 to be exact. There was meant to be 70 plus weapons, which they gassed up on Discord. And there was only 65. And those weapons are actually very important, like the Power Maul for the Ogrin, which I believe is getting sometime this week, but missing content. Yeah, good one, Fast Shark. Back to you, Pep. As of the full release, I've had my fair share of crashes and bugs, ranging from enemies despawning, to disablers disappearing, special attacks not functioning properly, books being unattainable, the list goes on. The last update has severely reduced my crashes, so I only crashed once or never in majority of my gaming sessions. But the best bug I've encountered was this Poxhound that was about to jump one of us when all of a sudden, he reached for the sky and came back down with no fall damage. Apex Legends, anyone? Oh, and also to note, they did fix a lot of the bugs that have been occurring in the game the last few updates. Forgot to mention that, but yeah. This has also spawned a hot take on the game feeling like an early access title, something you should take with a grain of salt and consider before picking this game up. I won't cover too much on performance since this has been covered by a lot of content creators, but for the most part, each update has made the game more stable and better to run. Aside from the crashes, I haven't had too many problems with frame dips or any of that. There's no benchmark testing available, so I can't go into the specifics, but feel free to watch Digital Foundry's video where they break the game down and give you the best recommendations to run the game well on your rig. I want to end this review on a happy note with the game's soundtrack. Just the Kid killed it with this one, and it's safe to say it's easily his best work to date. Every song fits the theme of the 40k universe perfectly, the use of piano chords and opera is superb, and Disposal Unit. Oh my god! A god tier song to have in the background while killing one of the game's bosses. This song is just perfect to the ears. Just wanted to give credit where credit is due. If you dislike everything this game has to offer, at least give the soundtrack a listen on YouTube. It may change your mind. Despite its problems and flaws, Darktide is still a great game that scratches that Left 4 Dead itch that players may have been looking for but wanted something different. Offers some of the best first-person melee and range combat in the market right now, and if you have a few friends to play with, you're in for a treat. I recommend it, but just be aware of its early access feel, and if you don't feel inclined, wait a few months before picking this one up. I will sure as shit still play it for the gameplay, the soundtrack, and nothing else. I'm really hoping Fast Shark don't fuck this one up, because what they have here is special. It just needs some more time in the oven, and they need to start listening to their community more, because judging from the last few community updates, it doesn't seem like they are, and they keep dodging the main issues that plagued this game. If you enjoyed, like the video. If I missed anything, comment down below. Subscribe for more, and feel free to join the Discord where you can talk about video games, meet new people, post memes, and overall just have a good time. I'm going to try to make the Discord a bit more interactive and of importance over the next few months, so I hope to see you there. Oh, and I have more coming to you soon. Peace.